today I'm going to show you a new idea of how you can use your patterned paper for mini card sets with matching envelopes. I will also show you how to make a gift box so that you can give the mini card set as a present if you would like to. In order to make my cards different, I tried out a variety of techniques for my mini cards. For example, I used dies to decorate, stamps or stencils, and I even braided paper for a card. But just take a look, maybe there's something for you too. My name is Julia and I'm an enthusiastic card maker and paper crafter from Austria. Welcome to my channel, Julie's Kreativschatzkiste. For my mini cards, I work with patterned paper in the format 6 by 6 inches or 15 by 15 centimeters. My mini card sets each consist of 5 cards and the matching envelopes. For each envelope I need one piece of paper with 6 by 6 inches. My mini cards themselves are 3 by 6 inches, so then folded 3 by 3 inches square cards. That means for a mini card I need half a piece of a patterned paper measuring 6 by 6 inches. For a set of 5 cards you need at least 8 patterned papers measuring 6 by 6 inches. I picked a few more because I want to make my mini cards match the envelopes, so I will have several half-sized design papers left over that I can use for other projects or to decorate the cards here. So I cut my 6 by 6 inch papers in half here for the mini cards, and then I make a fold line at 3 inches. Unfortunately you don't see that because I did it out of the picture, I'm sorry. I then reinforce the fold lines so that the cards fold well. And here's my first set of 5 mini cards, finished and ready to decorate. Since you cannot write on the inside of the patterned paper, I picked out a suitable yellow paper and cut out squares of around 2.5 inches by 2.5 inches, which I can then stick onto the inside of the cards. This leaves a nice edge where you can still see the patterned paper, but also there's enough space to write. However, before I glue these squares in, I use my stamp aid and decorate all the squares with this decorative corner stamp. I then stick the squares onto the inside of the cards with my tape runner, so that you can write your message inside. Now we can start decorating the individual mini cards. And for the first card, I used this strawberry set from the Spellbinders 2023 Advent Calendar. I cut everything out and I'm now decorating the front of the card with it. I also use a corner rounder on this card to vary the shape. My cards are all thank you cards, Danke in German, which means I use the same stamp that you see here for almost all the cards. Here I stamped it with distress oxide iced spruce to match the color of the paper, and then I heat embossed it with clear embossing powder. And I reinforced the whole thing with a second layer of paper and then stick it onto my card. You will also see a lot of these ivory vintage Nuvo drops in the video. Here I make the dots on the strawberries with it. And with that, card number 1 is already finished. For the second card I used the Spellbinders Advent Calendar 2023 again, namely this border die. I simply cut it out from the edge of the card. I then glued the die cut border onto a piece of vellum, which I then reattached to the card so that I got a transparent border with this decorative border on it. I previously cut the vellum with this cut edge that comes with the border, so that the right side is curved in the same way as the decorative border. I'm now going to stick this onto my card and then I'm going to cut off the edges. To decorate the front further, I cut out the border again out of yellow paper and glued it to the front at a 90-degree angle. Then my sentiment is added to the card and the card is also finished. For card number 3, I picked out the stencil with a beautiful flower that was in some Tonic magazine, I think. I transferred the stencil to my card using Glacier paste from Nuvo. The dark blue provides a nice contrast to the design paper and it really glitters beautifully. This time my sentiment comes directly onto the card with dark blue embossing powder, also from Nuvo. Then the Nuvo drops are added and my card is ready. For the next card I would like to decorate the front with butterflies, and I will heat emboss them with distress embossing glaze. This is more transparent and therefore not as dominant as normal embossing powder would be. I first distribute all my butterflies evenly on the card. After I stamp them with embossing ink, I use embossing glaze in the color speckled egg. I am very careful when heating the card, as the patterned papers are thinner than normal paper, and therefore the paper warps more easily. You can get rid of a bit of warping by putting something heavy on it. I'll add my drops on this card and it is also finished. For my last card in the set, I came up with something special. I would like to weave or braid the paper. I don't know exactly what you call it. To do this, I carefully cut the card front evenly into strips, up to the fold line in the middle. The strips are ½ inch wide. And then I cut out strips from other patterned paper that are also ½ inch wide. I'm now weaving the strips into my card. It is important to alternate. If the first cut strip starts above the front of the card, then the second must be underneath, so always alternating. This creates this checkered pattern. I always push the strips towards the inside of the card as far as possible. There's space for 5 strips here, which I then distribute evenly. To glue it down, all you need to do is apply the liquid glue to the outer contact points between the card strips and the cut strips and fix it this way, so on all 3 sides. This is at the top and the bottom of the card, as well as on the side of the card which opens. I left something heavy on it until it dried. When it was really dry, I cut off the excess strips. This time I didn't use the stamp as sentiment, but rather a handwritten thank you, danke, on a ½ inch wide strip, which I then attached to the front of the card. By the way, I sketched it out with a pencil before. Of course, I mustn't forget the Nuvo drops. For the matching envelopes for my mini cards, I used the 123 punch board from We Are Memory Keepers or We Are Makers. With this punch board, there are dimensions given on the side for the envelopes that you can make. Unfortunately, there is no envelope with paper in the format 6 by 6 inches, but that actually doesn't matter, because I figured out that with square papers, you simply start at the half of the paper, in this case at 3 inches, so you can make the envelope according to the punch board instructions otherwise. This works for all square papers. So a quick overview. I take my 6 by 6 inch paper, place it on the left at the 3 inch mark and make my punch. I score my line, rotate the paper 90 degrees and do exactly the same thing. I can always start at the 3 inch mark on the left, and finally the corners are rounded off. Gluing the envelope together is not difficult either. You fold the paper along all the fold lines you made before, and then you glue the 3 sides together with double-sided tape or with liquid glue. This is how I made all of my envelopes. In order to give my cards away as a gift set, I also make a box for the cards. For this I also used the 123 punch board and a square patterned paper with a side dimension of 7 inches. Here too, I use half of the dimension as a starting point on the left, which is at 3.5 inches, and there I make my first punch. The special thing about this paper box is that I don't just score the score line A, but also the score line B, which is right next to it. The box is constructed like an envelope, but the second score line gives it dimension, and the cards have space in it. So this is what it looks like when it comes out of the punch board. I then fold all the fold lines and reinforce them with my bone folder. Here too, just like an envelope, the 3 sides are simply glued together, only the envelope is now in 3D. I fixed it with a clip and then left it to dry longer so that it really stuck together tightly. I then decorated the box with a bow, also from the 123 punch board. But I won't show you that now, otherwise the video will be too long. If you want to see that specifically, please let me know in the comments. So here's the mini card set ready to give as a gift. I'll show you this now with music, but stay tuned because we're making a second set together. Okay, let's move on to the second set. I made the envelopes and the base of the mini cards in the same way as in the previous set. For my first card I used this die, which cuts out a lot of butterflies in the shape of a butterfly. I cut this out on the front of my card And then I stuck this blue paper with the gradient onto the inside of my card, so that the butterflies stand out well. I cut off the excess paper and reinforced the fold line of the card again. To decorate the outside of the card, I used the cut out butterflies, but the other side, which have this pink floral pattern. I then added my thank you sentiment to the card, where I added also additional accents with my white gel pen. And this is what the finished card looks like. For the second card in this set, I used the Spellbinders Advent Calendar again, and I chose these dies that create this beautiful flower square. I put it together straight away. When choosing the paper for the die, I made sure that I used colors that matched my patterned paper relatively well. The thank you sentiment goes on the inside of this card. In order to show off my flower square, I glued it again onto a sheet of patterned paper, and I'm now cutting it to size with a narrow edge. This is glued to the center of the card front. And then I added the stamps with decorations around the square with dark blue stamping ink. And of course, my Nuvo drops are a must. I placed them within the squiggles and it turned out really well. By the way, I also used these decorative stamps on the inside of the envelope, and with that my next card is finished. For card number 3, I worked with the layering stencil that were also included in the Spellbinders Advent Calendar. I now blend this onto the front of the card with Distress Oxide. I then used Glacier paste from Nuvo in Frosted Petal for the third stencil layer. This is a really nice color and it glitters very nicely. And because I liked it so much, I also rubbed it on the edge of the card with my fingers. Unfortunately, you can't see the effect on the camera so well. Finally, I added a few details with my glitter pen. With the sentiment added, my card is finished. For card number 4 of this mini card set, I used embossing glaze in Speckled Egg again. This time I used a flower stamp again from the Spellbinders Advent Calendar. I then colored this heat embossed stamp with my metallic watercolors. By the way, for the sentiment I used heat embossing again with dark blue embossing powder. To emphasize the edges, I blend them with Distress Oxide Mermaid Lagoon. I decorate my 5th and final card in the set with plain colored paper, and I use my corner punch, which cuts beautiful decorations into the corners of these papers. I also use the flowers for decorations, which come again from the Spellbinders Advent Calendar. The sentiment is stamped directly onto the card in dark blue stamping ink. And of course I have to add Nuvo drops, this time in white and pink. The box I used for this card set is from Tonic Studios. It's called the Beautiful Bow Display Box. The envelopes fit perfectly inside, and it's also a beautiful display for your mini card gift set. So that was my video with the idea for a mini card gift set with patterned paper. I hope you enjoyed the video and there's something in it that you would also like to try. I would be very happy if you leave me a comment or a like, or maybe even subscribe to my channel. Servus, see you next time.